Virtual production has been in the market for a while, but here in the US, we see a great potential about the use of virtual production in local news. This is a co-presentation with the Spectrum News about the success story of implementing virtual production with them. So I'm going to talk a bit about Spectrum. For those who don't know, Spectrum News is an award-winning local news organization available to Spectrum 30 million customers with more than 30 networks across 14 states. Spectrum has been innovating in the past few years with content delivery, local content, and also virtual production, and we are going to talk about a few success stories that we've done with them. About us, PopUp Media has been in the market for more than 20 years now, doing virtual production since the early 2000s, although at that time it wasn't called virtual production. And I would say that what emphasized our way of work, that we bridge content, technology, and creativity together, helping our customers to make the maximum out of their investments. I want to talk about two case studies with Spectrum News. The first one is a show or a segment called In Focus. This is based in Tampa network, Bay News 9. What we have created there is a segment or a program that is basically an interview set where we can have a very cozy ambient where we are able to interview several customers. What we've done there, we leverage advanced zero-density technology with Unreal Engine. We've used initially the oldest version of Unreal Engine 4.27 and recently upgraded to the latest version of 5.5, creating a very hyper-realistic environment. So here you see, again, the composition. On the bottom left, you can see how it looks through cameras. The idea behind that is have a very cozy set with camera movement. In this case here, we've integrated, you can see on the right top, we can see telemetrics camera robotic system integrated with zero density. So you have a very smooth movement, slow movement in the set, creating a very real set environment that gives the viewers the sense that they are in a real set, but with the flexibility that the same set can be used for, obviously, for other users. Our latest project with Spectrum that we spearheaded with the creative director department, which I would say was a very challenging project. This project was about launching their Spanish national network from New York City. In New York City, as all of you knows, we have a serious issue with real estate. So real estate is quite expensive. They have a already fixed installation there, but what we needed to implement is a new studio. The size of the studio, if you see it here, is basically 19 by 16 feet. So we're talking about, I'll translate it to meter, we're talking about 5.5 meters by 4.5 meters. It's a very small space, but what we wanted to do is give the viewer a multi-million-dollar view of a set that looks real, but also gives a flexibility in terms of what they can use. So here you can see part of what has been achieved. A set that we're looking into a depth, we're looking into getting what we call the parallax effect, with several standing points where we can present and storytell different stories, but with a very, very limited space to use. The other aspect is you see here different sets within the same set. So the idea was to create a look that is already familiar to the viewers with other Spectrum News sets. So we've integrated existing hard sets, obviously implemented virtually, so we have a general look that makes it feel like a Spectrum look set. Obviously, with the ability through Unreal and zero density, we can control several aspects of the set, several lighting conditions, and also the ability to relocate the set to different positions. So we have several standing points, although we have a very, very limited space. The other aspect from a technology point of view, we have here integrated together with Spectrum Engineering Department a railway system with PTZ, with Sony PTZ FR7. Those allow us to do vertical movement but also obviously PTZ movement, and that allows us to give us a flexibility in terms of movement inside the set. Let's talk a bit about the challenges that we have when creating a set like that or a project like that. So from a creative point of view, the creative challenge is, first of all, we have to balance realism with functionality. So in the past, we've seen, again, certain trend in the market where we're designing spaceships. In news, we don't want to have a look that looks fake. We want something that looks real, that looks reliable, and that's why today, with the capability that we have with that technology to create a hyper-realistic set, that's an important aspect in that. The other aspect is functionality. With that realism, we want to create a functionality that allows us to tell story from a different point, from different ways. So we want to create several positions with a very small set that allows us to tell story differently. The other aspect is maintaining local identity. Spectrum News has a brand that it needs to maintain over time. They've invested a lot in this brand, and we want to create something that doesn't look something different than what they have on air. So that's definitely another creative challenge. We want to create something that looks depth. Again, when we have a camera, and if that camera doesn't move, we need to see that depth in the set. That depth is what creates a perception that something is much bigger than it is. And with that camera movement and with the design of a very multi-layered or multi-depth element, it gives us that look. We want to create a seamless integration between talent and equipment. So we want to make sure that from an operation point of view, this does not become a challenge. So the operation aspect, especially with Spectrum, the way that they work, the idea is that the operation itself is very simple. So the idea is to create, again, in zero density, we're able to create simple controls that are allowing the operator to control different things quite easily. The last thing is future-proofing for scalability. And I think one of the main advantages, especially when we're talking a network like Spectrum, we want to be able to grab one design and implement it in several parts. And here's a huge challenge and a huge cost-saving effect that Spectrum can have. By designing a single set, they can implement it in several locations at once. Something that when we work with hard set, it's almost impossible. And in terms of cost, obviously, it's prohibitive. So that's something that definitely is something we want to consider. How can actually virtual production transform local channels? First of all, flexibility. I think that that's one of the most important aspects. It allows quick changes and updates and set design without any physical change. So basically, also from a maintenance point of view, there's no maintenance to do beside the simple maintenance of a green screen. We also have seen in the past several trends in virtual production to go with LED volume. I would say that from my perspective, at least for local news, the green screen solution is still the best cost-effective solution to implement virtual production. It makes sense, it's easy, it's simple, and in terms of investment, it's much more cost-effective. From an innovation point of view, it enhances creative possibilities. No need to say that. We can provide advanced visual effects, dynamic background changes, etc. And I'll talk a bit about what can come in the future. Cost efficiency, I think, is the most important thing. Today, this is what everyone looks. How can we monetize more? And how can we pay less for what we're doing and create more content? So that's the biggest challenge that we have today in the industry. I have some data that's from another client of ours that for obvious reason I cannot disclose, but they've done the mathematical analysis or the economical analysis of how much it would cost them to create something on virtual sets and produce on virtual sets versus hard sets. So just the numbers to mention, in terms of CapEx, investment, they've reached a conclusion that the capex, when you take it over 3 to 5 years, you would invest 3 to 4 times more in a real hard set, especially when you're considering several shows that you need to implement. So you're talking about 3 to 4 times more than a hard set. From an OpEx point of view, it's even more interesting, because from an OpEx point of view, you're talking about half of cost of OpEx, and again, there we see a huge opportunity in terms of cost saving. Consistency, and I think that's a really important factor for Spectrum. how can we make sure that all our channels look the same? And how can we change the day that we want to change our brand, the look of our set? We can do that change much faster and obviously much cheaper. And sustainability. Sustainability is something everybody is talking about. Virtual sets are much more environmentally friendly in terms of power consumption, in terms of the carbon footprint that we have. A virtual set make much more sense. So I think that there are a lot of advantages today in terms of a virtual set from that consideration. Where do we see the future? So first of all, what we see is the possibility of synchronized storytelling. The idea that in the future we will be able to integrate everything together, not just the set, because today the way most of clients use virtual production, they have a separate workflow for graphics and for the sets. But if we combine them together, we are able to tell a story much more synchronized with an entire environment that supports our story. So that's one aspect that we see. The other thing is cloud production, and especially when we have a network that has several locations, we want to be able to centralize. We want to be able to work on the cloud, so that's something we definitely will see in the future. Virtual guests, it's something that we've seen in the past, but I think that this is something that in the future we'll see coming more and more. It will become easier. Today, it's still a challenge, but we will be able to have remote location, have remote guests, integrate them seamlessly into the set like they were sitting next to me in a virtual set. So that's where we see also a huge change that may come in the future. And the last thing is centralized production. I think that one of the aspects that is extremely interesting in the future, especially for a client that has several locations, to be able to centralize its production, whether it's the technology itself, the render engine, and to be able and support from a single point, might be remote as well, all the different locations. So definitely we see there a future in that.